This is my least favorite of the first 5 books of the Wheel of Time, perhaps even the first 7, which is half of this series. Let's talk about the specs and stats of the book, go through the plot real quick, and I'll tell you why I feel what I feel. I'm Captain Mike, this is Whiskey and Witerature. I talk about whiskey and books, and today's Sunday, so it's a book review, The Dragon Reborn, Book 3 of the Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. James Oliver Rigney Jr., pen name Robert Jordan, was an American author who specialized in fantasy. Certainly, his claim to fame was The Wheel of Time. The Dragon Reborn was first published in 1991. My copy has 585 pages, and I didn't turn one page of this book because I'm listening to this series right now. It's in entirety on Audible, and I did listen to this version narrated by Rosamund Pike for 26 hours and 5 minutes. I have read this book numerous times because it was already published when I began the series in 1995, and I burned through the series multiple times. Excuse my version of the printing here. Most of my books were destroyed in Hurricane Helene last year, and I didn't have a hard copy of the first 3 books of the Wheel of Time, and so I purchased this set specifically for these reviews. All right, let's go through the plot, or what happens in The Dragon Reborn. And in the aftermath of the previous book, The Battle of Falm, we have the main characters divided into 2 groups at the beginning of The Dragon Reborn. Rand, Perrin, Loial, Moiraine, Min, they're with a group of Shienarans in the Mountains of Mist. Nynaeve, Egwene, Elaine, and Mat are at the White Tower in Tar Valon. Rand, he's been feeling the itch to move things along, to fulfill the prophecies of the dragon, even though he doesn't understand most of these prophecies. One of those prophecies is that the Dragon Reborn will take Kalandor, and the Stone of Tyr will fall. What is Kalandor, you said? Well, think about a magical glass Excalibur that's held fast in magical weaves as opposed to a block of stone. Kalandor, besides being a glass sword, is also a sa'angreal, which is a magical object that allows channelers to weave vast amounts of the one power. So Rand, one day, he just gets up and he leaves and starts walking to Tyr. Moiraine, she sends Min to the White Tower to update Swan Sanche on what's been going on. And then she and Loial and Perrin and Lan, they brave Darkhounds and Dark Friends trying to catch up and chasing after Rand. Back at the White Tower, Mat is healed from the taint of the knife. He fights and wins a battle, or a duel, against Elaine's brothers. Then he hooks up with Tom Merrilin, and with the help of the girls, he escapes Tar Valon and goes to Caemlyn to deliver to the Queen of Andor a letter from her daughter Elaine. In Caemlyn, he hears of a plot to assassinate Elaine, and so he and Tom know that she is going to Tyr, and so he and Tom also go to Tyr. Egwene, Elaine, and Nynaeve, they are tasked by Swan Sanche, the Amirlan seat, to hunt the Black Ajah. Now they find a clue, and that leads them to go to where? Of course, to Tyr. So at the beginning of the book, The Dragon Reborn, we have the main characters are either already separated, or very shortly after the book begins, they become even more separated. And then throughout the book, they go and do the things that they're doing for the duration of the story, and then they come back and at the climatic battle of the Stone of Tyr. And that is a super brief rundown of the plot of The Dragon Reborn. Now, some notable things do happen in this book. Rand and Moiraine, they do fight to and kill 2 of the Forsaken. Mat, he's healed of the taint of the knife, and Perrin meets and falls for Fael. Perrin also begins to understand, though he's still really scared of it, of using the wolf dream. We also meet the Aiel in mass, and they are the children of the dragon. So they are a huge part of the entire story. Okay, like I said, this is one of my least favorite books in the first half of the series. And that is for two main reasons. The first of those reasons is Nynaeve. And honestly, in this book, and for the next 2 or 3 books at least, she is insufferable. In fact, most of the female characters in the story in these next few books, like, they don't ruin the story, but it's hard to read sometimes the way they act, and they're written just, I think insufferable is probably the right word. Having said that, I have read the book numerous times, this whole story, and I have grown over the readings. Once you get through the next few books, I love Nynaeve's character's arc. In fact, like, it might be we like her even more later in the book because she does grow and change a little bit, and she becomes someone we can get behind. But right now, book 3, book 4, book 5, I almost can't stand to read Nynaeve's character. And that brings me to the second point. It's kind of related to the first one and kind of not. It's the fact that we spend so much time with the girls, with the female characters in the Dragon Reborn. And that does two things to me. First of all, we spend so much time right now when they're insufferable. And secondly, we spend very, very, very little time in this book with Rand. There are, I think, later in the series, in the second half, 2 other books where we spend a very small amount of time with Rand. In the Wheel of Time series, there is a huge number of characters, and we see often different parts of the story from their eyes, from their point of view. And there are, like I said, I think 2 other books later in the series where we also don't spend a lot of time with Rand. And those also are included, to me, as my least favorite books in the Wheel of Time series. Now, when I say I don't like them, I like them less. It doesn't mean I don't like them. I do enjoy this book. I actually think, if you don't mind not reading Rand in your face so much, it is an interesting device to use him basically outside of the story, and we see the story through so many other people's eyes. Oftentimes, the characters do catch sightings of Rand out of the corner of their eye. They'll see him turning a corner or walking across the street, but they don't recognize him. And so that's actually a pretty clever device. We see him, with the Shienarans at the beginning of the book, and then he's missing for most of the story, but we get glimpses of him through different characters. And so it is, I think, pretty clever. But I could use more. I could use more Rand in these first parts of the books, and it's just my preference. So he is gone. I mean, we spend almost no time with him until he explodes back on the scene at the Stone of Tyr. And that brings me to my next point of something that I like about the book as well. Like the battle at the Stone of Tyr. We have all these guys and they went their separate ways. And then we have them all converging at the stone. We've got Matt and Moiraine and her group. We have Elaine, Nynaeve, and Egwene. We have the Aiel. We have the Forsaken. We have Rand, all exploding back into the Stone of Tyr. And I thought that was so chaotic, and it's classic Wheel of Time. And that, I think, was a great sequence. And this book really is, in a lot of ways, like the first 2 books, in that we have the characters are all together or slightly separated. They go and do, and they all come back together at the end of the story. Quite a few books in the Wheel of Time follow the same kind of storyline. There are a few where people are separated and we don't jump around quite as much. We don't come together quite as much like that. But certainly a majority of the books are kind of like that. So again, so I like it less. I do really like the book. It does advance the story. We meet some nice characters. honestly, I don't really care for the character Fail really at all. But I love Perrin, and I think Fail is perfect for Perrin. And so in that respect, I do appreciate her character. Again, because she's right for Perrin. As I read her, I just don't really care for her. But, you know, she fits like a puzzle piece with Perrin Ibarra. So, to me, that's pretty good. So what I'm doing right now is I'm, again, working my way through the Wheel of Time series. And I'm not trying to turn this into a Wheel of Time channel at all, of course. I do book reviews. I'm trying to keep those to Sundays now. But as I go through the Wheel of Time, do no more than one Wheel of Time book review per month. And that's about the pace that I'm reading them or listening to them on Audible. So that's working out well. So I have the first 2 published already. And I will be going through, I guess, the next 11 months at the very quickest through the entire Wheel of Time series. So I would love to know what your thoughts are on the Wheel of Time as a whole, or on the Dragon Reborn specifically, or if there's any characters, like, do you like Nynaeve right now? If you do, I would love to know why. Anyway, my guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the review, like it. It's free. Subscribe to see more of my content. Again, I talk about whiskey and books. But for now, my friends, you know what to do. I hope you're reading something good and drinking something great, and wear that damn hat. Cheers.